everyone. So if you already not watched the first part, then I definitely recommend that you go do so. This is a follow-up video, or the part 2 of me profiling a client of mine. Her name is Xhante. In the last video, it shows the whole process of me figuring out what type she was, and not only figuring out what type she was, but then also gathering a whole bunch of evidence and reasoning for why I believe she is this most preferred type. And like I said, if you haven't seen that yet, make sure that you go back and check out that video. But if you already have, then at the end of that video, I revealed what type she is. And now in this video, I'm going to be giving her the reasoning that I have to believe why she's the type that she is. So for those of you who are interested, definitely let me know. Know that you can contact me. The description in the description box, it shows where you can contact me, and also all of the details, like a blog of which my coaching services and profiling services are, and all the perks behind that as well. So if you guys are interested in any of that, let me know. Feel free to hit me up and I'll get right back to you. But in the meantime, I hope that y'all enjoy this session and be on the lookout for more.
I would say probably INF, I don't know, INFP maybe?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that is actually the type that I concluded, INFP. And from the beginning of the session, I started already getting those vibes, but of course, with the professional profiling session, I don't care how intuitive you are, you can't just go off of vibes. So I was like, all right, no, I want to, even if anything, try to prove this wrong or right. So I asked, as you know, like a series of questions, just to see, okay, is she going to stay in line with this FINESITE paradigm that I'm seeing? And sometimes even when it seemed like you were steering away from it, then when I'd asked for you to clarify, you actually reposed, like you actually restated the answer to the question right in line with things. And so that's what we're going to run through right now. But I just want you to know, like, I do believe that you're an INFP. And I don't know how much you know about type, so I'll just go ahead and break down everything, in general. Hopefully it doesn't come off as, what's the word? Condescending or belittling.
Yeah,
it's just me,
that's
like,
kind of what I thought you were going to say. I was going to say, no.
Okay, perfect. All right.
No.
So as you probably already know, there's the I stands for introverted, and then the opposite would be extroverted. That just means everybody has, extroverted, introverted parts. Everybody has an intuitive and a sensing part, which is the second one. Everybody has a feeling and a thinking part, and then so on. So for you, I chose introvert because, and there's more that we're going to get into, but just on a dichotomy level, I could tell that even though, and you said it before we started the session, like, oh yeah, I talk a lot and everything. I could tell that your focus is more on your internal world and processing that, as opposed to the external world. And I think that's actually where extroversion and introversion come down to. Where is your focus most directed? Which world is more real to you? And it seems like your inner world is more real to you. The inner world of books, the inner world of the ideas in your mind that you have and everything. And even not just, like saying things, which you kind of did also, like, I can't be around like people, and you just not even being aware of people to like begin with. I felt like that was like all something. When I asked you what your okay, well, actually we won't skip to that. So intuitive versus sensing, I believe that you are an intuitive type. The opposite would be sensing. Sensing people, they like to have their information verified and / or reliable. But intuitives, they play in the abstract, in the conceptual, in the metaphorical. And our whole conversation, I just saw how you went into rabbit trail upon rabbit trail upon rabbit trail. Like, I have the whole bunch of notes here that I just was like, wow, okay. And I'm just like recording everything, and like, and I'm listening, and I'm following along, and there was a lot of rabbit trails that I wanted to follow you with, but I was like, ah man, we're gonna be exploring the whole universe for an
Yeah,
infinite amount of time.
that's what I told you. Like, I know we're like 6 hours apart, so you know.
Yeah. And so, but I could tell that, you have no problem with exploring what is behind the curtain and even going to the extent of like, the conceptual and the abstract, and you feel comfortable in that realm as opposed to like sticking to what is verifiable and what is reliable. You don't mind extrapolating information and playing in the philosophical realm. So that's where I also pinned you as intuitive versus sensing. Um, I believe that you are a feeler over a thinker. I do believe that, like everyone has a logical side to them, and that's not to say that you're
Right.
not logical at all. But even you said, like heart over head. And the way that you talked about your feelings, you said that you even feel like you're too in touch with them and it could consume you. Which is, I feel like was pretty confident, like, feeler language amongst other things, and then for perceiver versus judger, I didn't specifically ask any perceiver judger questions. Um,
Mhm.
and usually, I'd ask, which I mean, I guess like since we're here, would you say that you are a very organized person, or would you say that you're kind of like, not necessarily like messy, but like just not very like particular with your organization? And then lastly, also, would you say that you're more like free spirited or, you know,
Like everything has to be. No,
yeah.
I'm I'm very. I think I used to be very organized. I mean, when I was in school, I had to be. I mean, you kind of have
Mm,
to
of
change
course.
the way you are, or else you're gonna lose control of your notes. You're gonna lose
Mhm.
control of everything, and then So I think that. But now I know where everything is. It might look like a mess to everybody else, but I
Exactly.
think is.
Yep, that is perceiver language. Literally, that is perceiver language. Like, well, to everybody else, it probably looks disorganized, but I know where everything is.
Yeah.
And the way that perceivers are is they keep, according to Antonia Dodge, they like to keep their inner world organized, that way they can move freely in their outer world,
Right.
whereas like for judges, they like to keep their outer world organized, that way they can move freely in their inner world. So that being said, if you are a perceiver, then you extrovert your perceiving process and you
Right.
introvert your judging process, which the judging process is the FRT and the perceiving process is the NRS. So going into cognitive functions right now, I believe that you're an INFP, which means that you extrovert your intuition. You have extrovert intuition, which is all about, like, oh, what does this, um, how would I, hmm, it's more like extrovert intuition looks at how things have been in the past, and then it tries to find like a novel way to be able to almost like reinvent the wheel, you know? And it's always pretty much like asking the question, like, how can we reinvent the wheel? Like, well, what more can we make from this experience? And the way that you even speak, like when I asked you the flow question, like, okay, so what puts you into flow? Like, what exactly do you just love to do that, regardless of, how exhausted you are, like you go on indefinitely. And you said, oh, I love to write, I love to create. And you talked about how you write based off of like personal experiences. And if an idea hits you right there, then you have to go ahead and jot it down, like, or else
Yeah.
you're gonna lose it. And that's like, okay, that's really interesting. And you also talked about how you don't do second drafts. Now, for me, I thought that was really interesting. And actually, I want to take this opportunity because when you did say it, I wanted to ask you like why. I have a theory as to why you don't. But I think that you kind of you were going on, so I didn't want to interrupt you. But now that we
Right.
have you here, like, why would you say that you don't like doing second drafts?
Why don't I like doing second drafts?
Yeah,
Purity.
you said
Purity.
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 It's more, it's more authentic to me if
Yes.
get me the first time.
Exactly.
Than if I've had time to like go back and, oh no, I want to say this differently. Oh no, I want to, you know, No, this is, you know, your story, whatever it is, your story, your song, whatever your creative thing is. If you're a creative type, that's your gift. And your gift should be pure. It should be as pure as you can make it.
Wow.
Don't overthink it. Don't overwork it. You know the way you overwork bread dough and it becomes like, you know, chewing on a golf ball? Don't overwork it. Just find that, just get that sweet spot. Do it once. You're good, you know, and just do it that way. That's why I don't do, and it's not like, oh, I think I'm so good, that's why I don't do second drafts. No, it's because this is my purity. This is my gift on paper, the way that I wanted it to be. If I wanted it to be different, I would have written it that way the first time. So that's why I don't do second drafts, and I don't like professors that require you to do multiple drafts, because that messes me up. So I just keep on handing, and you know, I mean, usually I just kind of keep on handing in the same thing. It's like I don't, and I never say it. Like if some of them are really, you know, just you must do, you know, 3 or 4 drafts. Like no, it's not necessary. Not for all of us, you know. So maybe some people who are really paranoid about, no, this doesn't sound good. Gotta fix it, gotta make it better, gotta make it sound more like what he wants to hear.
You mean like the INJs or the IJs in general?
Yeah, you know.
Yep.
No, I don't do that. This is, you know, like I said before, like this is me. I'm always just me, and it reflects in the things I do also.
Yes, for sure. That's exactly the theory that I had. I figured that the reason why, and I put a star next to that when I wrote it down. I figured the reason why you don't do second drafts is because as an INFP, your dominant function is introverted feeling, also known by Personality Hacker as authenticity, which is very interesting that you use that word in that language a lot throughout the profiling session. And I believe that that, again, is another reason. Like authenticity is all about, you know, finding your most core values, finding that anchor of exactly like who you are. It's very deeply in tune with how you feel yourself, and as you also relate to how you feel, you're able to find that same resonance in other people. Like, oh, that feeling looks familiar. Wait, let me look. Nope, it's not that. It's not that. It's this, because it's so nuanced. You have such an interesting and nuanced perspective of your own emotions and your own motivations that you're able to now find the same things in other people. And when I had asked you about, you know, your feelings and your emotions, you saying that you feel so in tune with them that it could almost consume you, that no FJ, or very, very, very few FJ types would say something like that, let alone, in my opinion, thinker types would say that. So that already, like, you know, ticked something off for like, okay, she's probably an introverted feeling / FI user. But then you also said about how like there's so many compartments in your mind and when it comes to these feelings, when it comes to FE, for example, FE is always tethered with TI, and those compartments with the mind more have to do with, you know, all of their, you know, very logical thoughts and everything. But for TE and FI, they actually compartmentalize a whole bunch of the different feelings and, you know, emotions and motivations and stuff that they have. And so you being tapped into all of these different nuanced parts of yourself, that was very interesting. One thing that I did that I was like, huh, that's interesting, was I wanted to, like, you know, just make sure I stamped FI over FE. I asked you if you were more tapped into your own emotions or you were more tapped into other people's. And you answered like how an FE user would, and you said that you're more tapped into other people's. So at that point, I was like, okay, but I wanted to continue to hear you out, to
Right.
see what you really meant behind that. And you went right back to FI, and I was like, there it is.
Yeah.
You pretty much said that, I mean, I always feel my emotions, but I'm just saying that I can put my emotions aside so that I can listen to you. And then on top of that, you talked about how the reason why you'd even do that is because you want to be there with the person in the dark place. It's like I'm not just
Yeah.
gonna leave you behind. If you're in the dark place, I'm gonna be there with you, which is where FI thrives. Introverted feeling thrives being there in the dark place. When you compare FI with FE,
Mhm.
there's an ENFP named Heidi Priebe. I don't know how familiar you are with her, but she gave the analogy. Yeah, she gave the
Yeah.
analogy that FI, if it sees someone at the bottom of a well, then it'll climb down there to go and sit with the person at the bottom of the well. Whereas if FE sees somebody at the bottom of the well, it's like, hold on, I'll go and get some help. I'm gonna go and get a ladder. Both of them have pure intention, but FI is willing to go all the way down there and sit with the person down there and like be there. And it's not really even necessarily fixated on getting the person out anytime soon. Whereas FE is like, oh my goodness, what are you doing down there?
Yeah.
I gotta help you out. And so the fact that you even said that in your own language, like, I want to be there, with you, like during that dark time and everything. I want to sit through that. That to me, once again, went back to FI. Whereas, like, I believe that an FE user, like, I'm an FE user. I really, it's as crazy as it might sound to you, I really do not feel like I'm in touch with my emotions that strongly, if
Mhm.
almost at all. I could never say they're consuming me. If anything, it's other people's emotions that consume me. And so then I feel like I'm like super connected to them in that sense. And so I admire how you said that you are in tune with yours, but you're willing to put yours aside to help other people. Whereas like for me, I'm not even really aware of my own to be able to put it aside to help other people. So,
Right.
and I think that that's how INFJs would probably also answer as well. So yeah, that was one reason why I also believe that you might have been an FI user. And going into I asked you about like how others would speak of you and everything. You said you wouldn't even like notice when you were getting attention. Like your friends would say like you wouldn't even notice when you're getting attention. To me, that
Yeah.
was like wow. Not only like introverted, but also like lack of FE. Like you're not even really like aware of how other people are like paying attention to you and everything like that. They described you as very nice and sweet, and you make it easy for people to come out, which I also believe was like a very like FI thing, because throughout the whole entire profiling session it seemed like you were
Right.
very focused on like, I just want people to be themselves, which by the way, you said something so beautiful that I was just like, whoa. I had asked you, so when we started talking about like, yourself, then I had asked you like, where is it at? Oh yeah, how would you describe intensity for yourself? And you
Mhm.
said that that whether you pretty much already know whether or not you'll jive with someone, which by the way, I've only pretty much heard FI users say this. With FE, we kind of like can have an idea, but then we're like, nah, but I gotta try it out anyway. But with FI, like they just kind of, I don't know what it is. Like my ISFP wife, like she can just kind of like tell like right away, like, nah, I already know I'm not really gonna get along well with that person.
Exactly.
And it's just like I'm like,
That's
you
how.
don't know that, but no, they know.
Yeah. It's like no, we already know within like I don't know. I want to say like a few seconds, or I mean, it might be a little bit longer, but it doesn't feel long to us at
Yeah,
all. Like
she said a
already
few
know.
seconds too. That's
Yeah, it's like
crazy.
we
But
like you, or we're like no,
but it's
no.
interesting because with that same intensity, like when if you'll drive with somebody or not, you said that as soon as you see that type of connection, you want to be able to show your whole self like right off bat, and that's what makes you feel like you're intense. And I felt like that was once again going back to introverted feeling, like I am me, and I want you to see all of me. And then you continue to talk about that even toward the end of the session, where when I asked, like, like, what is something that's like obvious to you that may not be obvious like other people, and you were talking about like expanding your infinity almost, which to me seemed like extroverted intuition, because with
Mhm.
INFPs, the best thing to do is that they start off with introverted feeling, where it's like,
Right.
okay, I already have this strong idea of who I am. But the extroverted intuition is how they expand who they are. That's when they go out and they start doing all of these different things, and they start, engaging in different activities and stuff like that, to be able to notice, like, how did this make me feel? How did that make me feel? How did this make me feel? Because extroverted intuition is always like, oh, what did this do? What did that do? What did this do? What did that do? And it's hilarious because when I asked you, how were you like as a child? You said very introverted, very shy, but you were also strange. And you did strange things, such as,
Yeah.
I don't really know. I just felt like I had to put a blade to my dad's paint job.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? Simple explanation, extroverted intuition. I don't know, I just kind of wanted to see what would happen. I don't have any reason behind it. And you said that, I have to know. You can't just tell me things, like I have to do it.
Yeah.
Which not only seems perceiver, but also extrovert intuition in the front, or in the front seat, like either dominant or co-pilot. So that once again goes back to how an INFP, like, that's how they continue to expand their horizons. Like, oh, I went to this country and I saw this way of living and I kind of liked this, but I didn't really like this. So these are the parts I'm now going to integrate into myself. And that's how they continue to grow, 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 and grow more of who they are. Whereas, like,
Right.
for the reverse, an ENFP, they're already doing all of the exploring, but now they have to come back and sit with themselves and be like, okay, who am I really? And which of these many things that I've explored actually resonate with me? So it's kind of the reverse, which with you, as you were speaking, and I even asked you, like, okay, where's your attention directed, the outward or the inward? You said, well, you pretty much said, I have to start off with the inward, which is pretty much this foundation of I know who I am and everything, before you expand that outward, which I believe that an ENFP would be like, I'm still kind of finding that. So I just explored everything and now I'm kind of like getting in. And there's a little bit of, like spillover into each side, but being consistent with the whole profiling session, that's what I was kind of like getting. So far, do you have any questions or comments? I've said a lot, sorry, but yeah.
No, I was just listening to you, and it's true because I've traveled a lot. I've been to Thailand and Vietnam, Taiwan,
Wow.
Australia, Easter Island, Tahiti, and
Wow.
all of those places. Not all the places I've been, but just a few of them. I'd have to like check my passport to see exactly where I've been. But
Mhm.
all of those places, I really did. It's funny because the first thing I do when I go anywhere, and I know people talk about cultural appropriation and all of this, but the first thing I do, I don't pack many clothes. I buy my
Wow.
clothes there because
Wow.
the reason people wear the clothes that they do in the countries that they do, because it might have to do with religion where you have to be covered up a certain point, but you don't want to be hot, so you don't want to be wearing jeans and a sweatshirt or dress the way we do Western side. So I will go and I will buy, in Burma or Myanmar. I say Burma because the people there do. Um, they wear things called longis, which are like these tubes of cloth that you step into and then you pull them so that they fit you pretty close to the body, and then you wear like a light cotton long sleeve top. So everything, it's very streamlined. It's a very streamlined, put together look, but you can go anywhere in it. I can go to a temple and not offend anybody. I can go into tea shops. I can go anywhere. And I don't know if it's the way I'm dressed or the way I look, because I sort of have this sort of pan Asian look where everybody sort of just ends up speaking to me, and wherever I am, they assume that I am what they are. So I have to learn how to say I'm not. I mean, I remember standing in front of the I don't know, the immigration part where they finally let you out into the country, they wouldn't let me out because I wouldn't admit to being Thai, which I am not. I'm Filipino, Hawaiian. Yeah, I'm all of these things, but I'm not Thai. And they're like, no, you're Thai people. We know you are Thai people. No, I'm not. I wish I was. Yeah, it's very beautiful. Like, don't get me wrong, Thai women are beautiful. They're gorgeous. I'm not that. But thank you. Thank you for even thinking
I'm a
for a
different
second.
style of gorgeous.
Yeah.
Got
for
that.
even thinking that. That's what I do. And it doesn't bother me. And people get so bothered, I think, when they see, because there are temples where you would be able to go because you're a man, where I would not be able to go because I'm a woman. I don't get bothered by that. It's fine. It's another culture. I am completely, when I'm there, it's, I don't know, when we went because we go with one of our old professors, and he says, when you go, like your brain is going to be changed, and you're going to have, existential crises and all of these things. And I'm thinking, like, no, I didn't have that at all. I was going with the flow. I mean, if they said, if it said, no ladies allowed or whatever, fine, no problem. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. I'm not going to get, worried about it, because I'm not, when in Rome, you just go with, yeah. And you are much more comfortable, and you will enjoy yourself much more if you're not fighting the flow all the time. You are not saying, well, why can't I do this? In my country, they would let me do this. A woman could do this, and a woman can do anything a man can do. Well, yes, sweetheart, but we are not there. We are here.
And I think that your ability to even be able to separate and just be immersed in whatever that culture might be at the time, I think that's also very admirable to be able to see that. So I think that's really awesome. And I think, again, even the fact that you've traveled so much in this sense, not even just like, oh, I just wanted to go visit and whatever, but like you really like immerse yourself in that culture. Again, I hadn't even like asked about that, but that's very, very, very high thing for extroverted intuition people, front seats. So that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And then also even extroverted intuition is always attached with introverted sensing. So introverted sensing is all about like your past and pretty much all the impressions that it's made on you, and pretty much like things that have been very consistent and reliable. So for an INFP, that would be your tertiary function or your 10-year-old, which means that it's not really that strong, but 10-year-old still says some very cool things every now and then, that could be more of like your comfort zone or the place of consistency for you. And you can also go there for play. I thought it was very interesting when you talked about how the beach and all, I could tell by the way that you were a writer because of the way that you spoke, and you described your experience there. But it was very interesting the way that you were describing your memories, which seemed to me like, okay, this person is pretty tapped in to their introverted sensing function. Because and I asked you like, okay, because now at one point I was just trying to confirm, like, is she INFP or ISFP? Which I was pretty sure that you're INFP, but I was like, let me just make sure I cover all bases here. And it seemed like you were using extroverted intuition, introverted sensing, as opposed to what the ISFP has, extroverted sensing, introverted intuition. ISFPs that I know do not have that kind of memory. It's like, I'm so here in the moment right now. This is what it is. After we leave, I don't really know. That's why they just pretty much go back to have that moment. Whereas like, the extrovert intuition, like it's like, oh, they're leaning more on the memory that they had and they're enjoying that and they're able to recollect it and they can revisit that memory so much in detail and everything. And it's almost like, wow, I want to go and experience more things, extrovert intuition, to put back into my memory, introverted sensing, which will then overall create the impression to help me further my identity, introverted feeling, which seemed like, yeah, you have a pretty good INFP thing going on over here. Um, and you talking about, man, there's just like so much here. Yeah, I'm trying to feel like which one should I even like go into next? Uh, man, you know, okay. I think also I'll just this will actually be the last one that I'm gonna point out on, and then for the rest of it, if you have any like questions or anything, then you can let me know. But also, I'm gonna
Uh-huh.
send you the recording of the profiling session so that when you watch it over, then you can see through the lens. But yeah, so with you talking about like yourself and everything, you talked about how you've door slammed people before, which people usually attribute to the INFJ, the INFJ door slam and everything like that. But the way
Mhm.
that you spoke about it, first of all, I don't believe that the INFJ, like that's, only for the INFJ. I think the INFPs do it as well. And if anything, they probably do it a lot more, in my opinion. They do it for like different reasons. So the way that you talked about it, you said that authenticity just screams from you. Like, even when people, you said that when people come to you and it's like, can you not see like how loud you're talking and all of that? And you're like, well, you can, it's a huge space. Like you can go wherever you want. Like you just want to have the freedom to be you. And it's not to say that you don't have a heart and you're not considerate of other people. Cause like you said, if I want, I can put aside my feelings for this, but at the same time, you still want to be able to have space to take up space. And that's what it seemed to be like for you. Like, I know that I am this, and if you can't take it, then you don't have to. But this is who I am, and this is how I'm going to present myself. Um,
Yeah.
and I thought that that was like very beautiful, and that's also why like you said, rarely do you door slam, but when you do, then like that's pretty much like it because like you just once again like who you jive with and you know who you don't, and so it's like people are begging you and you're like, no, I know, which FI is all about self-care. So it's like I know what's good for my mental health, so therefore I'm not going to put up with this relationship anymore. And
Yeah.
yeah,
I
did
rarely
that
do it.
resonate?
I've done it maybe 2 or 3 times in my entire life, and it's not it's once it's done, it's done. And I think from what I've read, or what I know of the IN, what they when they talk about the INFJ door slam, it's like, oh, it's not permanent.
Mm,
They do it for a little while, and then but the door kind of slowly opens again, and then no, not with me.
yeah,
Not
INFPs that I know, they definitely said the same thing that you're saying. They're like, yeah, no, like, and
yeah.
they said it was no problem. Like on Joyce Meng's channel, she interviewed 3 INFP females, and they spoke exactly about that. Like, yeah, and it takes us a long time to get there, but once we do, that's it. I, as an ENFJ, I will say like I'm more like how you just explained, and I probably shouldn't be confessing that, but it's just true. It's like, yeah, I'm slamming the door on you, but maybe you might change or maybe this because my FE is like, I don't know, you like maybe you never know, but yeah, with I've seen like with the
Yeah.
with FI users, it's just like, yeah, no, like even if they have changed, I don't really need this in my life. Like I'm okay as is, and I
Yeah.
admire that.
And we're just, it's not something that I'm, it's not something that is taken lightly. We, I don't think, like, it takes a long time. And someone asked, like, what does anger look like for
Hmm.
you? Well, um I can, it takes a long time for me to actually express that anger.
Hmm.
And I can either just distance, if I'm angry, I will distance, process until I'm ready to, like, okay, I know exactly what I want to, you know convey. I want to hear what you have to say, and we can come back together, and we can, you know
Yeah.
fix this.
Hmm.
Or if I'm really, there's just this feeling in your heart where you're like, no, it's done,
Hmm.
close the door. let it go. There's lots of other, there's lots of other people, lots of other experiences, lots of other things out there. And you're just, you just, as much as I will sit in the dark with people, I will not let them drain me. I will not let them be vampires upon my own core of, this part of me that says, I care about you, but I come first.
Yeah, yeah. And that's an admirable trait as an INFP. I totally get that. And even then, it's supposed to be something that we can all learn from, just people in general, like from you in general. Yeah.
And
So would you say that? So then, does this all sound pretty spot on? Do you resonate with the type?
it does. It does. It confused me. I'll admit it a little bit. I mean, I don't know how close you feel like certain personality types are, but for the longest time, because I had an English teacher when I first started college who insisted we take, the big long test. And I came out as an INFJ, and I constantly came out INFJ, INFJ, INFJ. And then as soon as I left school, I was like, well, it feels different now. I don't have to be. It's like I'm more free to play. I'm more free to not have everything. I mean, I was highlighter girl. I had everything, everything super organized, and everything had its place. And if you move my books, I would lose it. I would absolutely just, where's my book? Calm down. It's still here if you chill. Now it's
interesting.
Just, well, I can always get another one or whatever. It's just I've loosened up a bit. So I don't know. Do you think personality types change like
No, I think our personality types don't change. They just develop and become more open and better versions of themselves. And so for you as an INFP, first of all, so many INFPs believe that they're INFJs to this day. And some of them, even when you try to tell them that they're an INFP, not an INFJ, I've had some sessions where they're not happy with that. but you've taken it quite well, so that's good. And pretty much long story short, the INFP's inferior function, which actually I don't think we got to talk about. So the dominant function, the biggest, strongest function, which I was going to send you some graphics on this anyway, that'll better explain this. But the strongest function, if you're looking at it as a driver in the car, is introverted feeling or authenticity, which we talked about there. Then we have extroverted intuition, which is the second strongest. Then we have the 10-year-old, which is introverted sensing, which is the third strongest. And then the last one is extroverted thinking. Extroverted thinking is all about what gets things done. It's all about, achieving goals. It's all about this works or it doesn't work. It's all about like the most effective way to do things. And it's our aspiration function. I believe that you as an INFP, not only were you very particular because of your extroverted, is because of your tertiary introverted sensing, which is like very particular with like, okay, where are all of my things? But because you were also in school and you were trying to adapt and you were trying to achieve, then you're like, okay, my extroverted thinking, you were leaning on that. And that was like your way of being able to stay organized and everything. I have an INFP sister-in-law she knows that she's an INFP as well. But yeah, she's very, very similar. She got straight A's pretty much. And she was very organized. But then when she's like outside of the school realm, she doesn't keep her whole life like super organized in that sense. She's just very free and she doesn't really care.
If I turn the camera right now and you saw everything, you'd be like, my goodness gracious, that is a mess. But it's like, if you ask me, like, find me this, okay, there you go.
There it is. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I would say that that's more of it. And also, not even just like, because even though it's just a J and a P, the INFJ has completely different mental processes than the INFP does. The INFJ has introverted intuition, while the INFP has extroverted intuition. The INFJ has extroverted feeling, while the INFP has introverted feeling. INFJ has introverted thinking, while the INFP has extroverted thinking. INFJ has extroverted sensing, while the INFP has introverted sensing. So it's like these two types, even though they get confused for each other a lot, when you look at their hard drive, like their mental processes,
Right.
completely different. And that's what we were aiming for this whole session. And everything
Yeah,
that you were
and
saying, it hit on the INFP cognitive functions way more than INFJ.
and I'm glad I'm glad I did this, because I was so sort of like, wait a minute, because there's like 1,000 tests you can take out there, and I was coming up INFP, INFJ, INFJ, INFP, like what I need help here. And then I saw your video and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna just, because this guy seems really passionate about this, and that's what I need. I need passion. I need the, like, okay, I'm gonna help you out here. I hope he sees this, and I just, and so I'm not, I'm not really, I'm not mad.
You
I
don't
am,
seem like it.
I'm not, I'm not. So I must be an INFJ because it said so. It's like, no, because there were things in there that's like, yeah, that's kind of me, but I kind of feel this, but more of the tests came out INFJ, and it's sort of like, well, it doesn't really, I mean, tests, they tell you even in school, like, tests are not a heavy indicator of what you can do or what you can't do. It's what you do when you're in the classroom, you're in a lab, you're writing a paper, you're doing something that you're actually putting your hands, your thought, your words on paper, your actions. That's what tells us what you are. You can take every test in the world and ace it, but you're failing all of the little assignments we asked you to do, where you actually have to perform. You actually have to do what we're asking you to do. It's like you're failing on all those, but you're passing all the tests. That doesn't give us a good indicator that you're learning what we're trying to teach you.
For sure. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And my mind works in that sense of like finding connections between different things. I remember taking an African American history class, and it was, oh my God, like I needed therapy after this class. I was just like, I knew things were bad. I didn't know things were that fucking bad. Like because we have our own history, people don't know there were plantations here too. And but our plantation history is nothing like that. I mean, it's and so I think there was and we had to read a lot of things, a lot of poetry, a lot of sort of the the Renaissance that came about with African American writers and the things that they were trying to express through that pain and through all of the stuff that they had to go through. And I remembered something that just kind of got me. It was a poem on the first page and something on the last page. And it was a line about a sunrise. And the last line, it was a completely different piece of writing, but it was about a sunset. And I'm like, how do they do that on purpose? Like, it starts with a sunrise and it ends with a sunset. Dude, this is an entire book. How? And I had to put that in the essay that the professor asked us to write. And he said, how did you find that? He said, I've been
that's really cool.
Years. How? How did that? I said, it just stuck with me. I mean, images, when I read things, I don't just read them. They're not words on paper. They're pictures in my head. They're experiences. That's why I have to be very careful about the things I read, because I internalize them,
Totally.
So things that bad things, I have to be careful even about the news, things that happen to other people, because that gets me too. And people had to explain to me, like with the George Floyd thing, where they were like doing protests on their on their knee in that. I'm like, why would they do that? Like, that killed somebody. Why would they do? I couldn't understand. And somebody said it's to shame the people who did it.
Right.
in a peaceful protest, that becomes something different. And I was like, okay, now I understand. Because to me, that just looked like what the hell? Like, hello, somebody died this way. You know, I don't care if they were white, yellow, orange, purple, whatever, it doesn't matter. Somebody died, a human being died. That's not cool, you know?
Yeah.
And my friends live, like, they go to that place where that happened. And one of them even works near there or something. And so they were very affected by it. And the fact that and it really upset me that one of the guys was Asian. I was like, dude, what you make us look bad.
Yeah, that was yeah.
Like,
I won't even get into that. I mean, I actually put out a video on that. So, but
yeah, I mean,
that it was pretty sad. It was
like,
pretty sad.
You know, like I said, I never want to go through, like, here in Hawaii, it's always local versus haole. You know, people who live here versus haole pretty much just means white. You know, it used to mean foreigner. It used to mean anybody that wasn't born here, didn't come from here, didn't have Hawaiian blood. Now it pretty much just means somebody who's white. And if you say, and I try to explain to people that haole in itself is not a bad word. Okay. If I describe somebody as haole, it just means they're white. Now, if I say fucking haole, that's different.
That's
you know,
absolutely, absolutely.
That's pejorative. That's meant to hurt. I don't use that. And when I told you the story about the woman who's like getting after me because I was, you know, I took those two little, you know, basically worthless things that I was gonna put right back, and it was none of her business. She was haole, and I was like, you know, I don't want to get into this local versus haole thing, but why is it always some older haole lady, you know, getting up on, you know, a local, especially local girls who they think they can bully. I mean, I remember it was a really weird experience. I was sitting with my friend who was, you know, who was white, whatever. We were sitting in a car, and she was like thinking, she's like, oh, she's his little Asian sex slave or something like that. You know, he just uses her. And we were like, what in the world? Like, a therapist, you know? And we were kind of like laughing at it, because either you laugh or you get mad. And it's like, it's not even worth getting mad. Dude. Like,
exactly.
Like, this person has problems.
Exactly.
And she's like, oh, you know, she saw me laughing. She was, oh, she likes it. See how she laughs? And I'm just like, no, I'm laughing at you. I'm not, you know, he's fine. I wouldn't care what color he was. I mean, you can't, it's not like you can't have, you know, because I know like we have Chinese New Year, and there are lion dancers that go up and down the street that are from different I guess, you know, like the JCs or the Chinese groups, but they hate each other so much, like within their own group, that they can't be on the same street. Like, they have to coordinate which groups are good with each other and which groups are not. And I'm like, that's so sad. Dude, this is Chinese New Year. Everybody should just be like, let's just party. Let's just forget about, you know, why do you even hate anybody on the basis of what they, you know, how they were born. I don't hate anybody because of that. I don't like, you know, what I sense in here more than anything. It's like, if you're, and I think that's what your wife means too, when it's like, you know, it only takes us a few seconds, and it has nothing to do with the outer. What we're zeroing on is the inner immediately. And it's like, you know, you're cool. No, you know, you go. Yeah. And it has nothing to do with any of, you know, oh, you don't like me because I'm white. You know, like, no, it has nothing to do. I don't like you because you're a jerk. You know?
And it seems like it's also like related to a TE inferior type of thing. Like, oh, this works, this doesn't work, this works, this doesn't work. And that's kind of like how TE already operates, especially when it's at an inferior function. It's more two-dimensional and something that you're working on. But this
Yeah.
has been a really great session. I'm actually,
Yeah.
I'm really glad that you were able to resonate with it and everything. I do have to go now, but I
Okay.
wanted to ask, would you be,
Sure.
so I'm gonna send you the information and everything, but would you also be interested, or not interested, what's the word I'm looking for? Would you be okay with me actually splitting this video into two pieces and putting it on YouTube as an example of a profiling session?
Sure.
Really? So
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be great, because I think
Yeah.
that a lot of INFPs and just people in general who are either learning about how to profile someone, or
Mhm.
like how an INFP mind is like, because you're very articulate. So I think that's also pretty awesome and everything. But yeah, I just wanted to show like an example of all of that. And we'll continue to communicate on Facebook, because some of the things that you said I wasn't able to, like obviously like comment on like during the profiling session, because I was in
Right.
work mode. But yeah, you just seem like a very fascinating person. And so there's definitely like more things I would like, I'm gonna be probably running by you, and maybe
Yeah.
even throw you in a few videos in the future. But
No,
thanks so
that's
much.
the problem. No, I was really hoping. I'm like, I hope this isn't the last time I get to talk to him, because he's really cool, and
Aw.
I'd like to, I'd like to be friends.
Aw. Yeah, no, this is definitely not going to be the last time. I'm definitely going to keep in contact, and I'm going to send you like some of the graphics that I use, and this video, of course, as well, so that you can have some things like reference and look at.
Okay.
Um, yeah, but
And
cool. Mhm.
and I will definitely get on that payment thing.
Oh yeah.
I need to ask you though, your PayPal, what is your PayPal?
Oh yeah, no problem. I'll actually send it to you on Messenger and everything.
Okay.
And then yeah, whenever we get around to it, then we can definitely
Okay.
handle that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, let me
I
know.
trust you.
Okay. Yeah, I don't do that to people. That's not, I mean, that's
You don't
not cool.
seem like the type. So I got you.
That's not cool. And you're I'm driving with you now. Like I've been driving with you from like the beginning. So it's like
Mm,
not that I would do this to like someone I wasn't. I would still, you know, settle. I would
mhm.
still be like, okay, whatever. Would just treat it like a transaction. That's cool. But no, you don't do people like that. That's not good.
I appreciate that,
That's not cool.
Xhante.
And I appreciate your time and all the I saw your notes. I was like, wow, did really did a great job. So I'm really thankful.
Oh,
Thank you
thank you so much. I really
so much.
appreciate that.